Now, let's be clear. We've all learned about charge, and electric force in the 4th grade, and in junior high, and some of us in high school if you didn't avoid it. But I'm going to teach it a little bit differently, I hope, than what you learned in 4th grade. If I take a rubber rod and I rub that rubber rod with simulated cat fur, there's no cats harmed, okay? I say that I charge the rod. And what I find is that if I take a second rubber rod and do the same thing to it, that I end up with magic. They repel each other. Now, if I instead take a glass rod and rub that with simulated silk, no silkworms were harmed, what I find is that that attracts the rubber rod. Okay? It's not that different from magic. Okay. A little more. Think of me as Flitwick. Okay, what do you think we're going to get when we do a glass rod and a glass rod? Okay, so I take a second glass rod, I charge it the same way that I did the first glass rod, and I get a repulsion. Okay, now, my guess is that that's the way you were taught in the 4th grade. I'm gonna make it a little different. We're going to define a third category, the wood category. Now, if I take a piece of wood, and you charge wood not by rubbing it, but by doing that, what am I going to get between the charged wooden rod and the charged rubber rod? Tell your neighbor. Okay, let's find out.
Get out.
That's not what you said. Okay. Now, if this attracts the rubber rod, what's it going to do with the glass rod?
Attract it.
Okay, let's see. Got to charge this one.
It's crazy.
Luke, you are my son. Don't fight it. Back to the dark side. I asked you, did they do that in the 4th grade? No! So, the wood attracts both the rubber rod and the glass rod. Now the question, what about wood with wood? What if I charge up a wooden rod and then I charge up another identical wooden rod? What's going to happen now? Absolutely nothing. It's wood. Okay. Nothing. Now, we're going to discuss why that wood acts differently from the other two categories. But before we do, no, let's do it now. What the heck? we notice that the wood category acts differently. I can't find a repulsion with wood. And so we give names to these categories. We call the rubber and the glass charged, and we call the wood category neutral. Okay? Now, Brother Benjamin Franklin, he went so far as to take these two flavors of charge, the type on the rubber rod and the type on the glass rod, and give them names. And because there were two, he gave them the names negative and positive. Not like we haven't had enough to do with negative and positive in 205. Now, the reason he chose those names is because Benjamin thought that there was an invisible substance, this essence, that caused charge. And that when you rub the rubber rod with the simulated cat fur, I'm guessing he didn't have simulated cat fur, but no matter. Anyway, when you rub that rubber rod with the cat fur, yeah, don't listen. He thought that some of the essence left the rubber rod. And that when you rub the glass rod, some of that invisible essence entered the glass rod. And that's why the negative rubber rod, it was missing some of this essence. And the glass rod was positive because it had extras of this essence. Now it turns out that there is an essence, and Benjamin had a 50-50 chance of getting this right, and we've been paying for his mistake or his unluckiness ever since. I'll explain that in just a moment.